The buck stops with you. The fact that you have people working under you that are lying to federal judges and that you're not going to take responsibility for that and hold them accountable to that is shocking. And I think Americans deserve so much better than that. And your employees have regularly ignored court orders and lied to judges. Now you're covering up. And I just want to say, this conduct alone is impeachable. And I want you to know that Americans will get accountability for the damage that you have done, for the lawlessness of aspects of DHS, for killing innocent Americans, for terrorizing children. They will get accountability. And you're the Secretary of DHS for now. And you think you're immune from accountability, but I promise you this, one day, he is not going to be president anymore. He is not going to be in charge. And when that day comes, we will still be here. And we will still be seeking accountability. And in hearings like this, we are going to continue to prove your guilt. I yield back.
The lady yields back. Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Madam Secretary, can you feel the righteous indignation going on the other side right now? It's just kind of remarkable a little bit when you think about it. They talk about accountability and impeachment as for you and probably everybody in the admin should they ever gain control again, which is hopefully not. But the funny thing is, you know, accountability, why don't they own up to their own failures, right? Like, we're sitting here for 4 years with a wide open border. The former ranking member, not the current one, but the former one said that we were imagining a border crisis. Do you think that we were ever imagining a border crisis, Madam Secretary?
No, not at all. In fact, we lost 4,000 lives because of that invasion, of people coming into the country and that mass invasion that we saw going on. And 30% of the young girls and women were raped during that invasion as well. They never speak of that. The amount of people who lost their lives
now we
because
fast
of that
forward
were victimized.
On accountability, Madam Secretary, we talk about accountability. They're sitting over there not funding your department, right? In an active conflict on an international stage. We have members of the Coast Guard who are being fired on right now by the Iranian and their proxies, and they're not even getting paid for that. Is that right?
Well, we have one more paycheck ability in Coast Guard to pay them, but they are choosing not to fund those individuals that are at war. So
correct.
We are doing extraordinary measures to take care of them and their families, but they have chosen to not fulfill their paychecks by not funding this.
And all the great people who work at TSA, all these folks, if they have private jets, I'm sure a few of them do, but most of us actually fly through regular airports, and they go through TSA, and those people have a smile on their face, greet them. They probably don't even say anything about funding them because they're just too scared about it. But like, these people are working tirelessly, and they're not getting paid.
Yeah.
But they're still collecting a paycheck, I'm sure. They haven't foregone their pay. So they talk about accountability and impeachment, all this stuff. I think the buck stops with them. I mean, they had the government for at least the first 2 years of the Biden administration and didn't do shit. And then we come and they yell at you, and they get big mad and scream about you and impeachment, but they're not even doing the basic fundamentals of what they're supposed to do. Sorry, that was like a sidebar, but my gosh, like the righteous indignation and the hypocrisy is just alarming. I look at this, Secretary, and 10 million people under the last administration, encounters on the southwest border. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
About 10 million?
More.
8 million were entered, including 6 million released in the interior, 2 million gotaways. It could be more, obviously, right?
Yes.
For 45 consecutive months, the southwest border encounters exceeded 100,000 a month, 160,000, peaking at 15,000 a day. Do you remember what Jay Johnson, your many predecessors ago, said how many people it would be a crisis at the border if they were crossing per day? Do you remember that? I mean,
don't remember.
Jay Johnson, Democrat Department of Homeland Security Secretary under Obama, said 1,000. We were at 10,000 a day for the majority of the President Biden's term.
Right.
Isn't that so? They halted construction of the border wall, right? They terminated the Remain in Mexico policy. They restrict ICE enforcement and expand mass parole programs. They support sanctuary jurisdictions, right?
They do.
When you stop deterrence, when you restrict removals, you do all these things, that kind of creates a pull factor to come to the country illegally, does it not?
It does.
Now,
they have sanctuary cities. Illegal aliens that come into this country know where they can go, where elected officials will protect them.
And now under President Trump and your agency, that has been reversed. What a difference, what a different day. You just needed a new president, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible what President Trump has done with partnering with mayors and governors who will work with us to lower murder rates, victimization, how they have made their streets safer, and their communities are growing, their economies are doing better. We would hope that every single city would see the benefits to working with President Trump.
Well, Madam Secretary, I appreciate you being here, appreciate the work that you do. I'm going to yield the remainder of my time to the chairman.
Oh, I thank the gentleman for yielding. Earlier, Madam Secretary, you said context is important. I think that is well said. And I understand there are investigations going on. The Democrats have brought up some tragic situations that have taken place, particularly in Minnesota. But I do think context is important. Have agents been doxxed? Have ICE agents been doxxed?
Yes.
Have ICE agents been harassed?
Yes.
Have ICE agents been physically attacked?
Yes.
Have ICE agents been screamed at?
Yeah. Yes.
Have ICE agents been cursed at?
Yes, sir.
Not by the gentleman from South Carolina, but people on the street, yeah. Have ICE agents been spit on?
Yes, sir.
Have ICE agents been stalked? Have they been tracked online?
Yes, and they've had an 8,000% increase in death threats against them and their families.
I was getting to that. Have ICE agents' families been threatened?
Mm-hmm.
And have ICE agents had their pictures and addresses posted online?
Yes, they have.
I think context is important. We
is.
want to keep that in mind as we go about with our oversight responsibilities. Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 5 minutes. We'll try to get 2 more in, and then we got to go to votes. Normally, they're situation in the House right now. They typically wait on us. So we'll go with the guy from the gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and Secretary Noem. I'm glad that you finally made it here. I know you're busy using our tax dollars to trample on the Constitution, to enrich yourself, and to cosplay as law enforcement for your camera crew. We've seen it. You've led the campaign of terror by masked armed criminals in my district in Chicagoland. And around the country, you celebrate the murder of American citizens with the same enthusiasm that you showed when you killed your own puppy. You symbolize the cruelty, corruption, and incompetence of this administration and the Republican go-alongs. Your thugs at DHS brutalize the American people, and you lie and smear victims to cover up these crimes. Let's talk about 2 examples in my district. On September 12th, an ICE agent murdered Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, who had just dropped off his kids at school as he tried to leave a traffic stop. I said the officer sustained, quote unquote, severe injuries. Sitting there here under oath, do you stand by the claim that the officer was severely injured, yes or no?
I don't know the case you're speaking to specifically.
The whole country knows and you don't know. Let's play the clip of the agent talking about his injuries.
That's the injury and some lacerations to his elbow. Nothing major.
What you just heard was the agent himself describing his injuries as, quote unquote, nothing major, which means your agency lied to cover up the unjustified murder of Silverio by an ICE agent. Let's talk about Marimar Martinez, a U.S. citizen who was shot 5 times by Border Patrol agent Charles Exum. You were asked about Marimar at yesterday's Senate hearing, and you should be familiar with the case by now. DHS has repeatedly said that Marimar was a quote-unquote domestic terrorist who, quote-unquote, rammed federal agents with her vehicle. Sitting here under oath, do you stand by these claims, yes or no?
Congressman, we've seen a 3,000% increase in.
Do you stand by the claims? You've had an opportunity to look into the case, yes or no?
We have a changing situation on the ground all
yes
the time.
Or no? You're familiar with the case. It was brought up yesterday.
I'm familiar with the case.
Let's play the clip and see what we see as evidence.
All right, it's time to get aggressive and get the out, because they're trying to box us in.
We're going to make contact and we're boxed in.
We are boxed in.
All right, we're following, man. Fuck it. All right, out of the car.
Be advised, we've been struck. We've been struck. Don't you f***ing move.
The 5 shots that you heard against a U.S. citizen. So the agent said they were going to make contact, rammed their vehicle into Marimar's, immediately lied about it, and then shot her in cold blood. And then DOJ dismissed all charges against her. I wonder why. So once again, DHS lied to cover up its crimes. And this morning, you took back to social media, DHS continued to double down on her and lied again. Let me be clear. You are a disgrace to this nation, and you should resign or face impeachment. And every crime, including the murder of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez and of Marimar, must be fully investigated and prosecuted. But while you are, to borrow a phrase, the worst of DHS secretaries, the agency has been rogue and lawless since its inception in 2002. It was set up to expand surveillance and undermine civil rights by falsely labeling immigrants and protesters as terrorists, as we just saw. That's exactly what it's doing, and exactly why DHS must be dismantled and the immigration system must be rebuilt from the bottom up. That's why Americans all over believe that this agency has gone too far. Mr. Chairman, before I yield back, I request unanimous consent to submit for the record this Fox interview article dated February 5th, 2026, entitled, "More than half the voters think that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem should be removed." And with that, I yield back.
Without objection. Madam Secretary, I have one more, then we'll have to take a break for votes, then we'll come back for a few more members to ask their questions. Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Secretary, for your presence here today. I must say, as a freshman congressman and sitting through the hearings such as this, I'm absolutely appalled at the lack of respect and decorum that is shown for a member of in your position as a secretary. And I apologize for that. And let me say also, on behalf of North Carolina, thank you. Thank you for serving. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your commitment and your passion to your job and what you are doing. And over the past year, you and I know that liberal activists have taken to the streets to protest ICE and Border Patrol, often impeding law enforcement in the process. And among these protests, I'm curious whether you've ever seen the left express anger at the individuals that I have pictured here, or for the people I have pictured here in my hand. This is Fletcher and Schuyler, you may recognize. This is a couple from my state of North Carolina. They were killed in a head-on crash, and the suspect is an illegal alien with a prior DUI. Secretary Noem, are you aware of any protest or of outrage over the deaths of Fletcher and Schuyler?
No, I'm not.
This is Nate. He's a 21-year-old student at the University of South Carolina. He was killed by an illegal alien in a hit and run. Secretary Noem, are you aware of any protests to lock up his killer?
No, I'm not.
This is Ruby. She's 25 years old. She was killed by an illegal alien who shot her in the head and dumped her body on a Michigan highway. Secretary Noem, have you heard of any calls for her killer to be punished and deported?
I'm not.
No. And this is Ivory. Ivory is 7 years old. She was killed by a drunk driver who was in our country illegally. Secretary Noem, are you aware of any protest to lock up her killer?
No.
The answer, of course, is no. And as I've watched the pictures of the angel families here, how my heart has broken in just witnessing and watching and seeing the pain and hurt that you have felt. And thank you for your time and your efforts in being here today. There are dozens more Americans who have lost their lives at the hands of illegal aliens who should never have been in our country. But the media and the Democrats seem to want us to forget them. And the bottom line is clear. Democrats have it backwards. Rather than demand justice for these Americans, they defund law enforcement officials tasked with ensuring their killers are sent out of our country. Right there in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's take a moment and look at some of the people that the Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security so these could stay in our country. These on this board right behind me are just examples from Charlotte, which I represent a small part of. Humberto Pizzada Rodriguez, a known MS-13 gang member from Honduras, convicted of trespassing, public disorderly conduct, giving false information to a police officer, and 3 counts of illegal entry. Hector Maldonado Garay, a previously removed criminal alien from Honduras, convicted of 3 counts of simple assault, 1 count of aggravated assault and shoplifting. And Jordan Renato Castilla Chavez, a criminal alien from Costa Rica, arrested for indecent liberties with a child, first-degree exploitation of a minor, attempted statutory sexual offense with a child less than 15 years old, and solicitation of a child by a computer. Secretary Noem, these are just 3 examples of dangerous individuals arrested by DHS during Operation Charlotte's Web just this past November. And do you think average Americans want MS-13 gang members on their streets?
No, they don't. And we were proud to do that operation. 1,379 individuals were arrested and detained and removed out of that community, and it's much safer today.
And every day we see Democrats and left-wing activists spend more time advocating for these criminal aliens than for American victims, which was exactly the president's point in his State of the Union address that drew the picture for the entire country. I have so much more I could talk about, but my time is up. Again, Madam Secretary, thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment. And on behalf of North Carolina, I thank you. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back to our angel families. We're going to take a break now. And if you have to leave, I understand, but we really appreciate you being here, and we God bless you for what you've had to endure as a family. Secretary, we will take a break, 30 minutes more or less, and we'll be back as soon as we can. With that, the committee stands in recess.
At Vistaprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close. But we also print signs so that people can see your business here, see it here, and see it here, so you stand out. Even when they're way back here. Get 15% off signs and banners at Vistaprint.com.
Don't overpay for car insurance just because you're under 25. With Lemonade, you get a price based on you. Because we care how you drive, not just that you were born after the year 2000. Sign up in the app or at lemonade.com/car.
On behalf of the Snap-on team and the people of work everywhere, drivers, start your engines. Yeah.
Presented by Advance Auto Parts, the official checkered flag of the MTV IndyCar Series.
Here we go.
Over the course of this day, the Milwaukee Mile, DJ Clark, you have your eyes on who? I have my eyes on Connor
The road has a language all its own. ¿Entiendes? It's spoken with your hands, your feet. Can you hear it? Purelator. It doesn't just filter the oil. It forgives it. Keep it purring.
Ever wondered why some designs just click and others fall flat? See, design is a highly sought after skill because people care a lot about the way things look. This means that there is a constant need to produce high quality designs, whether it's for advertisements, websites, social media, and more. And there are a lot of tools out there to help you, some even to help you create awesome designs right from your phone. However, slick tools are only part of the puzzle. You still need to develop an eye for what design decisions improve your work and what detracts from your message. Hi there, I'm Phil Palin, a brand strategist and a creative professional. I've been working in design for over 13 years, and I'm here to share some of the tips that I have learned along the way. In this course on design fundamentals, you'll learn everything that you need to know to get started with your first design.
Just today. And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile. We used more exquisite standoff munitions at the start, but no longer need to. Our stockpiles of those, as well as Patriots, remains extremely strong. The enemy can no longer shoot the volume of missiles they once did, not even close, and the chairman will lay out some of those percentages. So our air defenses and that of our allies have plenty of runway. We can sustain this fight easily for as long as we need to. And as I said yesterday, we set the terms.
File their way through turn one, and they're going to turn three right now, coming down to this green flag mark.
It should be an exciting race for sure. And again, going to be interesting to see how the cautions, if there are any, how those match up with that fuel strategy. Will they have to wad it all up and throw it out the window early on if we get cautions early? Bring the formation up. Turn number 4, Alex Blow, your series champion. started in the 80s. Noem single, and the growing pains continue for that youngster here at the Snap-on Milwaukee Mile 250.
Show your engines, race fans, and Advanced Auto Parts, our lineup of free services is like having your own picture. Make Advanced your next pit stop.
The second of the two 250 races here last year, and Connor Daly, the fan favorite.
Because that could happen when we were right from the field into the wall. Themselves now to the fact this should be a five-stop strategy, although some have said they'd like to do it in four. But certainly, Mark, this incident at the outset of this race will benefit the fact that it should mean that everybody's going to be able to hit that magic mark here in terms of the first step.
Congratulations to the fans of the Milwaukee Mile for the hefty turnout, and we hope you are treated to an exciting race today. Got off to an interesting start, both shortly. Right on the nine, turn two.
Now, they wiggle and we're sideways. That's a miraculous thing. The field goes left to right. coming out below at the point. David Maluka's going to restart second. He's got the block with Connor Daly, Kyle Kirk with the top 5 blockers. We try to get things going here in Milwaukee.
Ward is 6th, the Newgarden is 7th, Will Power is 8th, Rita's BK is 9th, Kristi Grassley is 10th,
Start your engines!
We have only just begun to fight. America fights to win. And in Operation Epic Fury, we are. May God's providence cover and protect our troops always. And with that, I turn it over to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm here today to provide the American people and those of you in this room an update on Operation Epic Fury. First, it's with profound sadness and gratitude that I share the names of 4 of our 6 fallen heroes, all from the 103rd Sustainment Command, U.S. Army Reserves out of Des Moines, Iowa. Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, and Sergeant Declan Cody. To the families of our fallen, we grieve with you today, and we look forward to welcoming your family members home at Dover in the coming days. Out of respect for the other families, we'll withhold the release of their names until next of kin notification is complete. And either myself or Admiral Cooper will release those names as soon as we can ensure that all of those families have been properly notified. To our Gold Star families, to our wounded warriors and their loved ones, we will never forget your sacrifice. Our nation stands with you, and we are eternally grateful for your courage, your resiliency, your devotion to this mission and to our nation.
Hey everybody, Walton Goggins here. Starting a business is never easy, but
or near certain protected areas, you should not apprehend an illegal migrant. A school, preschool, primary school, secondary school, place of worship, place where children gather, such as a playground, recreation center, all these restrictions on federal law enforcement being able to enforce federal law. So think about it. Some sanctuary jurisdiction, illegal migrants been charged with another crime, maybe a crime abusing children, is released because the detainer is not honored, he's not turned over to ICE, is released to the streets. You're not allowed to go get a guy who's been charged with harming kids if he's near a school, if he's near kids. That was how ridiculous everything was in the last administration. But here's the good news. Secretary Noem has rescinded the Milwaukee memo, has rescinded the protected areas memo. Under Secretary Noem, fentanyl coming into the country is down, women and children are safer, and most importantly, under Secretary Noem and President Trump's leadership, the border is now secure. Remember that moment? We all remember the great speech the President gave last week at the State of the Union, but the joint address he gave the year before, one of the best lines I remember with that address was he said, you know, people said you needed new legislation to secure the border. Turned out all you needed was a new president. Remember that line? It's true. A new president with the secretary who was doing her job. In 1 year's time, 700 people have been deported under Secretary Noem's leadership. Nearly 3 million people have left the country. 1,400 known or suspected terrorists have been arrested. Not Secretary Mayorkas telling, I don't know, the status of people we've encountered on the border on the terrorist watch list. It's an amazing record, Madam Secretary, but there's still one big problem. Oh, one other thing. Another thing that's not going on at the Department of Homeland Security now, no more disinformation governance board. No more bureaucrats on a board telling Americans what they can say, what they can tweet, what they can read, what they can post. No more censorship going on at the Department of Homeland Security. But there is still one big problem. And I know the Secretary wants to deal with this, and we're going to deal with this tomorrow with legislation that we plan to mark up in this committee, and that is the sanctuary jurisdiction policies that are happening all over the country. Left-wing political officials in state and local government telling their local law enforcement, do not work with federal law enforcement when it comes to enforcing federal law. 1/3 of the country, almost 1/3 of the country lives in the sanctuary jurisdiction. 18 cities, 11 states, 3 counties, District of Columbia, but they're big population areas. 31.5% of the country lives in a jurisdiction where that is the policy. That may be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And we talked about this individual case last week. Abraham Gonzalez, September 20th, 2023, is arrested by Border Patrol for illegally entering the country. Of course, the Biden administration released him. 5 months later, he's charged with assault. 2 weeks after that, he's charged with motor vehicle theft. He stole a car. He's arrested by Denver police. 9 days later, placed in the Denver Justice Center. 6 days after that, ICE sends a detainer notice to the Denver Justice Center. I'll detainer notice if you're going to let this guy out. Just give us a heads up. But instead of doing that, instead of doing the common sense thing, in Denver, sanctuary jurisdiction, they give the federal government the finger and they release them to the streets. Release them to the streets. It's right here on the form. Denver Sheriff Department ICE notification being released to the streets on 2/28/2025. And here's what's interesting. This guy, they knew how bad he was because while he was in the Denver Justice Center, they have on the form, he's been violent to staff, keep him separate from all other inmates. So he's so dangerous, staff can't be around him, other inmates can't be around him, but they're going to release him to the streets instead of turning him over to ICE. Again, dumbest policy I have ever heard, but that is what the left now fully embraces. Let me give you a more recent example. Marvin Morales Ortiz. This is just next door, Fairfax County, Virginia. Detainer is sent, but the Fairfield County Justice Center says we will not honor the detainer. They tell him that on September 14th, 2025. They release Mr. Ortiz on December 18th, 2025. The next day, he kills an American. Next day, he kills an individual, murders someone. That is what happens in sanctuary jurisdiction. That is why tomorrow help is on the way, because we're going to mark up legislation that will deal with this. And I think I believe it will pass our committee. I believe it will pass the House. We'll get it to this. I want this to become law. I think most people with common sense want it to become law. The Shutdown Sanctuary Policies Act, which will give the people, one thing in our bill that we're going to have in the bill tomorrow too, be in the legislation, it will give the people behind you, where that scenario is played out, your loved one has been harmed by someone who should have been turned over to ICE but was released. It'll give you a private right of action for these angel families, private right of action where you can go after the government who engaged in that stupid behavior. So, Secretary, I want to thank you for your work. I want to thank you for being willing to come today and answer our questions. And with that, I will yield to the gentleman from Maryland, the ranking member, for his opening comments.
Well, thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Secretary Noem. We're glad to meet you, even though it's been 13 months since you took office and more than 5 weeks since 2 American citizens were shot dead in Minneapolis. Renee Good was a 37-year-old poet, about 20 years younger than you are now, and like you, both a devout Christian and the mother of 3. She was on her way home from school drop-off when she encountered an ICE operation, and one of your agents shot her dead, shot her 3 times. She bled out in the driver's seat of her car after your agents refused to let a doctor or EMTs approach her. You expressed no sympathy for her family and no regret for her killing by an ICE agent. You ran a smear campaign against Renee Good. You called her a domestic terrorist. Alex Preddy was also 37 and, like you, a federal worker. He was an ICU nurse at a VA hospital, outstanding in his job, providing comfort to many of our vets in their final hours. He was standing on a street corner filming your agents as they roughed up peaceful protesters. Americans have a First Amendment right to record government agents in public places, as 8 different federal circuit courts have unanimously found. But your agents pepper sprayed Alex Preddy for helping a woman that they had pushed to the ground. Then they threw him to the ground. They beat him up. They stripped him of a lawful firearm he had never touched. And then, after confiscating it, they shot him dead with 10 bullets. Before his body was even cold, you launched a smear campaign against him, using the same language, asserting without evidence that Alex Preddy had committed a, quote, act of domestic terrorism and intended to kill law enforcement. This disturbing video tells the true facts you tried to cover up with propaganda, and we can play it only because other brave Americans used their phones to capture the actual reality of this horror.
Deadly ICE-involved shooting out of Minneapolis. The Minneapolis police chief says a woman was killed after being shot in the head by an ICE agent.
Renee Nicole Good was a 37-year-old U.S. citizen and mother of 3 who moved to Minnesota just last year.
It was an act of domestic terrorism.
Breaking news in Minneapolis and another deadly shooting involving a federal officer in that city. This video shows the incident from this morning with officers surrounding a man before taking him down and shooting him during a struggle. Officials later said the man had died. Minneapolis city officials said the man is a 37-year-old white male, a resident of Minneapolis. They also say he is believed to be an American citizen and that he was a lawful gun owner with a permit to carry.
This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
Madam Secretary, you've provided no evidence to back up your defamatory lie against either of these American citizens. There have been 3 homicides in Minneapolis in 2026. Your agents committed 2 of them. Rather than work with state and local authorities to solve these homicides, you barred Minnesota's investigators from the crime scenes. You're denying them access to all the evidence that you have about the deaths of their citizens. It smells like a cover-up, and it makes me wonder who the real domestic terrorists are. But you didn't just lie about Renee Good and Alex Preddy. In dozens of cases, federal judges have found that your officials lied to them in court. A Reagan-appointed judge rejected the testimony of your acting ICE director as, quote, disingenuous, squalid, and dishonorable. Another judge called the affidavit of a top ICE official, quote, the sorriest statement I've ever seen, adding she was shocked when she saw it, and that if you were asking to get a warrant issued on this, I'd throw you out of my chambers. Here are a few more examples of the many scores we found in the case books. Yesterday, you insisted under oath to the Senate that you follow court orders, but that's not true either. Just last month, your lawyers were forced to admit that you had violated immigration court orders more than 50 times in 10 weeks. And that was just in New Jersey, one of 94 judicial districts in America. In Minnesota, Judge Patrick Schultz, a George W. Bush appointee, concluded, quote, that ICE has likely violated more court orders in January of 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. And while you make a daily mockery of our courts and our Constitution, you're treating the billions of dollars our colleagues showered on your department like a personal slush fund. You budgeted an astonishing $220 million for media consultant contracts so you can star in self-promoting photo shoots and lavish ad campaigns like this one of you riding horseback at Mount Rushmore, which was shot during last year's government shutdown. You're living rent-free in the official waterfront residence reserved for the commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard. You spent $172